Hey, it's me, Adam. So this is my first video on the channel, and I want to start with a quick disclaimer. These are low effort. I'm not good at editing, and I will get better in the future, but for now, it's more important to just put out videos consistently. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about some books. I have enjoyed reading ever since I was young, ever since I was a kid. But I've always been what I considered a very slow reader with only a few exceptions. To start with the exceptions, here I have The Martian by Andy Weir. This is one of the first books that I read very quickly. It's not exactly challenging, no offense to Andy. It's a terrific book, I really enjoyed it. But I just got so fascinated by it that I think I got through it in 2 or 3 days. Likewise, same thing happened with Ready Player One. This book by Ernest Cline was also really fascinating to me for some reason. Once I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. I think I finished it in like 18 hours from the first time I picked it up till I was done. So I read it all in one day, and I couldn't go to sleep. I just couldn't put it down. But more typically, it takes me much longer to read a book. So, for example, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman was an excellent book, and it took me months to read. It's not difficult to read. It was really interesting, but it just didn't catch my attention the way the others did. And it took me so long to get through it. Same story for Skunk Works, put together by Ben Rich. Fantastic book, really enjoyed it, but it took me months to get through the whole thing. And I think I've always been really discouraged by that it takes me so long to get through books. Because I like books. I like reading. And so I have continually tried, but I often end up giving up. A couple examples. I spent more than a year on Seven Eves. You can see the bookmarks still in it. Never made it through. I have picked up and started Midnight in Chernobyl several times and just never really made it very far. And quite a few others. I've tried several times to read books that I thought would be really interesting and just couldn't make it through. So, last summer, I was actually reading some Brandon Sanderson books that are so good. And the first one, I had that fast experience. I read it pretty quickly, not in 2 or 3 days, but in 2 or 3 weeks, and loved it. And then I read the second book of the series, Well of Ascension. This is the Mistborn series. And after about 2 months or so, maybe 3 months, I realized the same thing was happening. I just was not making any progress. And so I got Audible. And I started listening to books. And so I listened to the rest of this book and the one that follows it, The Hero of Ages. I listened to that on audiobook. So this is like brand new, pristine condition because I didn't actually read the physical book. But then I ran into a new problem. When I listen to an audiobook, I don't get the same sense of people and places and things. Because like hearing the names just doesn't do the same thing for me. And it was starting to deter me from reading. Like I wasn't reading listening, Audible, right? I wasn't listening to books on Audible because I felt like I wasn't really connecting with them the way I connected to other books. And that's when I discovered something new. And this seems a little bit silly, but I listened to The Alloy of Law, another Brandon Sanderson book, and then decided with the second that I had to read along as well to not get lost. And I got through Shadows of Self in 2 days. And I got through Bands of Mourning in like 3 days. And the moral of the story here is it felt really silly to listen and read at the same time. But I wanted to read. And sometimes when you're a grown-up, you have to ignore what feels silly and just do what works for you.